That would be good.
Okay, it's on.
Testing, testing.
So we'll go ahead and bring the meeting to order.
February 20th, 2026,
Yep.
0900, 0906.
So the agenda, on the agenda today are simply water rates and leak detection. If there's any, there will be an opportunity for public comments at the end and throughout the meeting. But is there any public comment right now on anything on the agenda that might lead us in any direction? Okay, let's just go ahead. The first thing is water rates, and we've been talking about that. I just handed you the MCA, and I have another copy. They gave it by Charles, so if you don't want to share that, just in case. That's, I think, what Montana Rural Water was referring to, particularly if you look right underneath that red line. This is why Montana Rural Water gave us that algorithm and why they put that algorithm together, which is actually a very helpful tool. But it scared us when we looked at our water rates because they said, oh, you're not charging near enough for water and sewer, considering the costs that you face with maintenance. So when I look at that, there's one question that I have. I might have handed you the part that I underlined.
Oh, yeah.
Let me trade you. One thing that we're going to make sure that we want to do is review at least annually the rates that we're charging. The other thing that I noticed on this MCA is that 5%, up to 5% is allowed water rate change without public hearing. And that's probably figuring in a COLA raise, which we haven't done since 2019. We did raise our sewer rates. Since then we haven't, and if anybody's noticed, the COLA inflation has been astounding since 2019. And we have been able to keep the water and sewer in the black. A lot of the reason we keep things in the black here is because we're really cheap. We live like the people who live in this town. We live kind of on a fixed income, and we're careful with our money. And we fix what we can by ourselves. And we pay our people really poorly, and that to our shame, but also that's what it takes. Most of us grew up and lived, a lot of us grew up and lived here, and that's just the way we did it. We can't really do it that way anymore because it costs so much to actually fix these things, and especially with all of this computerized stuff that we're bringing into our lagoon system and into our new well. Just looking at the cost of that, any of these vendors now, it's astounding the charge. You're looking at over $100 an hour for any type of contracting work anymore. We used to be happy with $15 an hour. Not anymore, and so we've got to kind of look into the future and be thinking about what we're going to be able to do when things do break down, and that's going to catch up with us really fast. So we need to look at a water rate increase. Really, the business of this committee today is simply to pass on to the council because we don't make decisions here. Any big decision has to be passed on to council. The only decision we actually need to make in terms of water rates today is to bring to the agenda of the next council meeting that we make a resolution to set a public hearing next month, as I understand it. Does that sound right to you, Mayor Chris?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah. And that's an easy decision for this committee to make. I think we need to do that. How much we raise that, that's something that we actually have to know by the time we make that resolution, and that's something that we're looking into. Unfortunately, we're a little crippled today because John Lee isn't here and she's our numbers gal. The deputy clerk takes care of our water and sewer, and she knows all the numbers. She has all that stuff on her computer. And I talked to her yesterday on the phone, and she was trying to direct me to information. Unfortunately, she's taking care of her mother down in Colorado, who just had a double knee surgery, knee replacement, so she's not with us. What Montana Rural Water, and I'm just kind of catching us all up to speed if that's okay, what Montana Rural Water gave us was an incredible rate hike that scared all of us. They suggested by their algorithm that we'd be looking at, I think it was in the neighborhood, somewhere between up to $80 and $90. I want to say about like $87. And right now we're at what, around $51 or something a month for water and sewer, just base rate without gallon usage. So, and that scared all of us, not just for ourselves, but mostly for the people that live in this town, because we also understand that the majority of people who live in this town live on a fixed income. And that puts us in a hard position because we don't have the tax base to actually to pay for the kind of equipment that it takes to actually give us water and sewer. You're all aware of the hemorrhage we have in our water system right now that it has grown in the last 4 months, I think. We've watched that grow. Thankfully, there's good news on that, and we'll talk about that when we come to leak detection. We're finding some. It's really hard to find water leaks in this aquifer or in this geologic here because all of this used to be a riverbed. My house used to be 100 yards from the Clark Fork River. And when I look at pictures from 1910, it's now 30 feet from the Clark Fork River. Hopefully I'll be dead before my house is gone. The river, we all know, moves, and we've watched it move, those of us that have been here in the last 30, 40 years, but I don't think it'll move through town again, but certainly not this year. But because of that, most of this valley was at one time historically a riverbed, and so there's gravel layers underneath all of that. And so when we get a leak in town, that water can, and apparently a lot of these leaks, they're not coming up to the surface where we can find them. They're not bleeding up, bubbling up. What's happening, they're probably just going right back into the river, and we're purifying the river for Thompson Falls with our chlorine. It's a concern, of course, that we have, so we're pumping water into the town that where we have leaks, now we're pumping that into the aquifer, which is a very shallow aquifer, about 20 to 30 feet. That water is probably just migrating back out to the river, and that was probably the case down by the city shop where we just found a large leak, and our public works people fixed that, thankfully. We have a lot of old infrastructure under service lines, particularly any service line that's of copper or galvanized is rotting through. If you could see the copper line and the galvanized lines that were fixed down there last week, they were just full of holes. And I'm sure that's going to be coming to my house soon, because I'm pretty sure that, I know I haven't touched my water lines for the 40 years that I've lived there, so I'll probably be having to fix mine shortly, and a lot of people are. If it's on my side of the meter, that's up to me, and that's my problem. And that's unfortunate for people that are on a fixed income too, by the way. But if also our service lines come from our main line, most of our main line, I would still say probably over 50%, Brad, or Corey, tell me if I'm wrong, I would still say over 50% of our main line is AC asbestos concrete, which is actually a really a good material. It lasts really long, but it's also fragile in the sense of with frost and defrost, it's brittle, as opposed to the C90 PVC that we're putting in now. Anything that we put in now is that blue PVC C90, and I think that has a much better durability and more flexibility. And any service lines that we're putting in now, we're putting in SPVC, that black pipe, and I think that's going to last better. That's not going to rust or corrode like copper or steel. And so hopefully down the road, as we repair these things, we'll have better longevity. The problem is again, a large percentage of the town is still running on old material that is going to wear out. And so we just have to find that stuff. Now, we could go through with a program to fix every service line in town and every main line in town, but the cost of that without a grant would be astronomical. And so at this point, we have to play whack-a-mole with it. And when we get a leak, we fix that leak. We fix it there, and we fix it with the new material. Have I covered that all? Is there any addition to that?
And didn't the presenter from the rural water say that when you fix the leak, then pretty soon, shortly after that, there's a leak happen?
They can. The minute you fix the pressure on one side, it's gonna
Water's
put a little
never
extra
the next
pressure.
weakest point, unfortunately, now.
Yeah.
I am watching the numbers at the well since that one leak has been fixed, and it's still kind of bouncy. By next Friday, I should have a better average of kind of how much less we may be putting out.
Yeah. Good. And to add to the perfect storm of the last, 3.5, 4 years, our one public works director who knew everything about the infrastructure of town passed away with cancer, and with him a lot of really helpful knowledge passed away as well. And we retired our other guy that knew an awful lot, particularly about the sewer system and the water system, retired. So, but I'm really proud of our public works people right now. I think they're doing a great job. They're picking up the job. They're learning from where they can, picking things up, and I think we're catching back up to speed on that. So, as I like to tell people, the town's been going since 1907, and we always have to deal with the failures of our parents all through life, and we can complain about it, but it won't do us any good, so we just have to pick up and do our best. And in this town, that's where we're at, particularly with our water and sewer infrastructure. So we've made a lot of progress with the new well, with the new lagoons, hoping to down the road be able to put in a new tank, catch that up to speed. Our old tank is in really good shape for a 60-year-old tank, but we need to be thinking about that ahead of time, because if that were to default on us, we'd have a big problem. So we're working on that. All of that to say, it's why we need to make sure that we're getting the necessary income in for operation and maintenance, particularly. And then this town really depends largely on grant monies to do any large construction or repair.
And typically to get an RFP, you have to be in compliance with Montana law.
And that's part of the problem too. That's why we are paying attention to Montana Rural Water and to our DMCA's, making sure that we're in compliance. Because if we're not, they're going to throw that back on us when we try to write a grant. Mr. Mayor, did you have?
So does that mean a smaller increase than they recommend, that do it, like 5% a year? That actually wouldn't work because it would take a long time to get up to the number that they're looking for. In
At this
order
point-
to do an RFP?
At this point, I think initially, I think we probably, my thought is that we probably do need to raise it over 5% initially. But we've talked about, and that was why I brought up that question to Bobby with rural water. Do we have to do this all in a year's time? And she didn't give me a direct answer to that, and that's something that I think even the state of Montana, our representatives would understand. We're moving in that direction, but we can't put that kind of we don't want to put that kind of a burden on the people of town immediately. In other words, raising that, in that case, it would have been like 80%. So if we can somehow mitigate, adjust that, be working toward, and you all know the financial situation in our country right now. I mean, inflation is crazy. Look at the price of gold, the price of silver. Things are just nuts right now. We don't know where it's gonna settle out, how it's gonna settle out. We're kind of trying to hang on. So, I think my thought has been, but that's up to the council and up to the people of our town.
It sounds like it's up to the state. I mean, if you gotta get there,
I know.
you can do an RFP or try to get anything done
Well, we'll find out what is up to the state.
before the public meeting. You're gonna have to get that answer because you can't really make a
Right.
proposal for a rate increase
Right.
without knowing
Yeah.
what you gotta get. See what I'm saying?
Yes, good point, and absolutely something that we have to nail down before that public hearing. I wanna have Bobby with rural water here if we can swing that for that public hearing, so that she can kind of do the explaining from the state, because she's working with a lot of little towns in Montana. When I looked at the average for water rates in the state of Montana, most of what we're getting is from the bigger towns like Kalispell is quite high. It's like $90 for a base rate monthly. Missoula's less. Missoula isn't bad. It's like in around $60.
Butte, yeah.
But of course, Livingston and Bozeman are pretty high. I think they're closer to $80. A lot of our small towns, some of them, and they range back and forth. I know Cascade, where my wife grew up, it was like stupid high even 8 years ago, because they had to put in a new water system that they had to do without grant money. So,
Well, I think one of the, to get to your point, and reading this code annotated, line C there says the rates and charges in addition to grants or other revenue must be sufficient to, and then it goes on to enumerate all these other things.
when I read that, I'm not as good at legalese as I'm sure all the rest of you are. On C, it says the rates, fees, and charges in addition to grants or any other revenue. So I'm trying to read that. Do they mean without factoring in grants or other revenue, or are they saying that we can factor in other grants and other revenue? Chad?
If it says in addition to, that would mean with.
That's okay. The problem is, you don't know what you have with grants and other revenue. Other revenue, we don't really have any other revenue from town.
We do know that when we need to put that water tank in, and not just within the next 5 years, be working on getting that situation to where it needs to be, we're gonna have to rely on a grant, and that tank's gonna be like $5 to $6 million. Right now, the well going in, and we were blessed to have the grant for that new well, which is desperately needed for the town. But just looking at the rising rates of different services, just like we found out that just to get power to that well is over $50,000. And so that basically takes that grant, and at the end of that grant, it's just gonna put more onto the town because there's not gonna be enough to cover everything that was needed for that well.
And that's point number 3 under C there. Provide adequate sinking fund. to retire any bonds, pay interest on bonds, and then also reasonable reserves for enumerated purposes, which you look at the new water tank as be an enumerated purpose, something we need to plan for, and emergencies. So these are things that are, they're going to be there eventually. We're going to have potential problems, and then we need to plan for future projects. And so all that it's not cheap. And water, of course, one of the other things is the leak detection. That would be a nice tool for us. We have a couple options. Chris has used Rural Water Guy, but those all come with costs. So that reserves and enumerated purposes, there are some things, built-in things that we're going to have to keep doing that are not planned for in the sense of, I don't think we have it in our budget, or we can't do it out of our budget just because it will not cover everything.
No, and
Rate
it
increase won't.
it won't in the future either, when you think of the cost of that tank, for instance. But what the state will look at is if we're adding to that, if we have match funds, if we're being responsible as a small town to have funds because we know that's coming. It's kind of like when I was 8 years old, I went out in the berry fields and I would make $1.20 a day picking strawberries. My parents would have me take some of that and buy my clothes for the next year, right? But only some of it, because they knew I was only able to make it, $1.20 a day. I was kind of lazy in strawberry fields, to be fair, but we're the same way as a small municipality. We don't have the tax funds. The state actually does have a good chunk of money, not as much as other states, but it will. And we have other people moving into the state that do come with a lot of money and pay a lot of taxes, and they just have more money to work with. We do have that problem of being a small municipality, and particularly in this state, one of the poorest, this town, by our median income. So the state, I think, will look at that and grant. I think the people that supply the grants will look at that, hopefully with favor. But we have to do our part. We have to be responsible with our governance. So.
We definitely need a grant writer. I mean, it kind of boils down, in my opinion, boils down to that, because what do you got, 620 meters here in town? Mm-hmm. So whatever money that needs to be generated basically is going to come from those 620 meters, right? We can't do that. I can't. I would love to give you guys a ton of money and solve the problem, but I know I've contacted you about it and kind of tongue-in-cheek about how the townspeople get stuck paying for everything.
Yeah.
But everybody else that comes into town that just happens to live on the outskirts gets to use all of our amenities. But they're not really, they may be contributing somehow, but not really to the infrastructure. So I suggest we put up a toll road.
Right.
Yeah, over by
The bridge.
I don't think-
by the bridge, and, but anyway, that's, kind of my thought on it. Because everybody that's got money lives outside of town. Everybody that moved here, they didn't come move into town, basically. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but anyway, I'm kind of going off on a rant there, so I apologize.
Well, and that's helpful to our businesses in town, but not at all to the town, to our coffers. I think a lot of us would have, I know for years I've thought, I kind of wish we had a sales tax, only because because I don't buy much. And that would bring in income. The problem is I don't want them to add a sales tax to everything that we are already taxed on. And I don't think they're gonna take away any taxes if they give us a sales tax. So, but that would help us, having the people that do their tourism in our state and everything, helping with our infrastructure.
needs to be a 10% flat tax with no refund at the end of the year. That would take care of a lot of things.
Well,
I'm too young to run for president, so here we are. Problem is that, like you said, we've got 620 customers that are gonna fund this, and well, us included. I mean, we all are subject to that same rate that everybody else will be. The hope and prayer is that we have no major emergencies over a course of several years to where we can get those numbers built up. So in the event that something does happen, we have that money available to us. But
Do you know if this is a closed basin or not?
what does that mean, sorry?
It's gotta do with well regulations, basically, you can't drill into new wells, blah, blah, blah. And I know the WIPIC Legislative Committee, they talk about it, the aquifers quite a bit. And I think even DNRC is paying to recharge some of the aquifers. So if we're putting 2 million gallons of water into the aquifer, maybe they could send us a check every month. It's a recharge. I'll get a hold
But
of
if
Phil
it's-
Cohenauer on that one.
if it is chlorinated water, they would,
It's
they
better.
would say we're a Superfund site and they would close us down.
Got a point
You know, you can still drill a well. I mean, you could drill a well in your yard if you wanted to. You just could only use it for irrigation. You couldn't use it for drinking or, you know, plug it into the system in any way.
there. Must not be a closed basin then. Okay.
I don't think so, yeah. That's
We should maybe know that, because what if I drilled a well in my side yard and I just irrigated it, and what if I were having trucks come there to fill it up? If that isn't regulated, I'd still be taking it out of the aquifer.
I mean, and I don't know the answer to that, Donna. There may be some regulation that says that you can't, that you can't distribute it. I mean, who knows, but, the problem that we've run into, when I grew up in Thompson Falls, and in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, there were over 15 sawmills operating in this county. And, there's lots of money here, there lots of industry. And then as the sawmills slowly died, the next big thing was alternative schools. At one time, we had close to 20 alternative schools, some of them having as many as 500 kids, like Springbrook. And then that died out, and then now what we have is basically essentially a retirement and a social security
Disability.
You look at the transaction of the jobs that are here, you either are on some type of government assistance, you are on some type of a pension, you work for the Forest Service, you work for the hospital, or you work for the county. I mean, they're the main 5 things that bring in revenue, and none of those jobs pay very well.
Well, for our committee's purposes, I just suggest that we pass on to the council that we go ahead and make a resolution for a public hearing and give the information. The last number that we were looking at for operation and maintenance was, I believe, $67, raising the rates up to $67. We can still pick through that with a fine tooth comb. Ideally, we'd have John Lee, because she's been doing a lot of work in that. And she called me yesterday apologetically that she couldn't be here. And certainly she can't be here for good reason, but just looking carefully with a sharp pencil at our finances, what does it take to keep us in the black? And then hopefully we can, at a more incremental pace, raise our rates to where we can support operation and maintenance, and then the other thing is laid out here below, item C on this MCA.
Looking for a motion in the affirmative.
Yeah, go ahead.
You've got it.
Okay. Alright, and I think that's the affirmative of all three council. Let's move on to leak detection. And to summarize that, we're still looking at a lot of different leak detection options. A lot of them are very expensive as well, as we've talked about, the caps that go on the fire hydrants, that we were talking about, that was over $50,000. And a continuing IT cost in that, also the new meters. How is that working out? Do we have a report, Brad left?
He left.
Do you know anything about the new meters, how, I know that they put in a couple of meters for kind of a test,
The test run, that's all the more I know, cause then
I do believe they put in that one new meter. I don't think they have the other 10 meters, but I don't think they've started putting them in yet.
okay.
So we've got 5 that would have the RF detection type stuff, or reading anyway, and 5 that were basically hand read. Just to try out and see how things work with our system and how readability they are. But it's gonna save us some money in the long run if those new meters work. Plus, there's a better availability. You know, we're how many meters we've been waiting for, a back order?
We have not received any new water meters since, I believe May of last year, because they come out of Israel, and so everything's on back order.
And so if this is a viable setup for these new meters, and they are accessible, it's gonna be a much better setup.
Because their plants in Georgia.
Yeah, so that's ongoing. One good thing that came, what was his name that came with,
Brad,
Fowler?
was that his name? That rode around with our Brad?
Oh, or from Rural Water,
Yeah,
Leo.
Leo.
oh yeah.
So he came with a sonic type of detection system, and Brad and him went around the town in a day, and that was, I think, how they found that leak down by our city shop.
And the one over here across.
And then he found another one, so I think we're actually finding some stuff. Just basically it's a big microphone or earphone or whatever to hear what's going on underneath. That's what the idea of those new meters are, is that they actually have that type of detection in them. But again, there's a software cost to that and an ongoing, IT cost. But we've talked about, and I think maybe Vol, maybe Chad, you haven't been on it, but the possibility of buying one of those. I think the price on that was in the neighborhood of $4,000 or something. But
right now they're looking to see if Rural Water has one on hand that we could actually have on loan for a while. And I think we're waiting to hear from Bobby on that.
If they had something like that, that maybe we could lease once a year.
mm-hmm.
You're asking 5 different vendors to come in and sample and block each one of
There
them.
you go.
Yeah, do that
Well,
periodically.
we looked at that too. I mean, you can actually bring water leak specialists in, but that's about $10,000 a pop.
So you gotta have the money to fix what they find.
Yep.
Mhm.
I mean, granted, we do have that. We have to fix what they find. But the
Sooner
other
than
thing,
later.
Like Leo coming in with Rural Water, they do that free to us. So he spent 2 days going around with one of our guys and going to all over town, listening in, and they found 2 fairly major leaks. We've already fixed one, and looking at next week to jump on the one across the mint there. But they found those 2 and then one other small one, and so far that's what's been found.
So my fear with buying this technology with these you know, meters that are sonic and all of that, is at some point, that technology is gonna be obsolete, and then where are we? We're gonna have to start back over again. And the closest example I can give to that is that when I worked at the sheriff's office in 1997, we got a computer system called Swift Justice. And we converted all of our criminal records over to this computer program that tracked everything. And we had that until about 2019. And then the guy that owned the company just decided that he didn't want to do software anymore. So he basically took his shingle down, and there we are with all of these records that are in that system. And he hadn't updated anything to be compatible with anybody else's system. So we had to basically start from ground zero, and we lost, the data's still there, you just have to go back and search it like you would an index card in the library, you know. But we basically had to start from ground zero after nearly 25 years of collecting information. And that would be my fear of buying software and then paying to have it maintained and all of that, to where if we can get one of these deals where, you know, $4,000 and drag it around behind a pickup, and then, you know, if we had to replace it in 10 years, that would be a heck of a lot cheaper than, just my 2 cents, but.
No, I kind of agree with you, Chad. I hate the new technology, and it changes constantly. This is kind of like sticking your ear to the ground. As a matter of fact, that's how, right now, we got, you know, our public works people are kind of sticking their ears on our fire hydrants and listening, and that's how you can actually do that. You can hear that leak across from the net right now by sticking your ear on that fire hydrant. So that's mechanical, we know how that works. So that's probably the immediate direction to go there. It'll be interesting to see what the percentages are after we fix these 2 big leaks here. They're pretty sizable, so hopefully we can bring it back down at least to 30%. And just, yeah, again, I talked to the guys in Missoula before I left office, and they said that they had just half a year ago been up to 50% in Missoula. And they have a lot more frontage than we do, so it's not uncommon for that kind of high percentage loss in water systems that have old infrastructure. And just so that people understand, you had done the math on that, I think, or Donnelly had, that if you figure out the electricity that we're putting into the pumps and the chlorine that we're putting into the water, it is at 50%, it is about $1,000 loss for us monthly, which is a lot of money in a small town like this, but it's not as bad as, again, when the repair for that is $50,000, you have to weigh that in.
So that unit that Leo brought out, is it on a trailer, or is it,
They hang it around your neck.
so basically a suitcase and,
It's probably square, well, it's probably maybe a cinder block, a little smaller than a cinder block. Goes around your neck, and then you've got a cord that goes to headphones, and then a cord to a little deal that you, when you want to listen, you push that, and then you have a third one that's got a little knob that you lay on the ground, push, and then so you can hear the rushing water.
so how, are they just driving from point A to point B and then getting out and testing it that way?
Yeah, it's pretty, yeah.
It was amazing that leak down there by the
So
shop.
it's somewhat archaic still, but
Yeah.
A little, I mean, but if you had somebody that would like walk, honestly, if you just went to every street corner, you could, and then you'd be able to kind of triangulate off which direction or whatever to be able to.
Listening in on that intersection down there, and there's 3 valves right there in that intersection, but you could start on this side of the intersection and listen, and you could hear the water all the way across that intersection until you got to the hydrant on the far side. You could hear it real good there, and then you could start listening and it start fading away. So you knew that right there was around
Where
there.
close you are, yeah. But
however, we've got all those meters that need to be replaced anyway.
We have over 50 that are unreading right now, yeah. Cause we've been waiting on new ones in that, yeah. But I'm sure you could schedule it for somebody to ride with for, you know, Brad and Leo's whatever. I mean, Leo will come and spend as much time as allowed.
Yeah, obviously we don't wanna take advantage of it, is that something that we
Right.
do for free?
And stuff, so all of rural water stuff is federally funded.
And that's the
That's how
bone,
they
I mean,
get.
yeah, Montana Rural Water is a tremendous asset, and that's a bone that the federal government throws at us as a small municipality to help us, because they understand our predicament.
But it was estimated that leak alone down there was as bad as that 3/4 line was, and it basically was just all semi-attached. Also because if it was eroded out, that it could have been 300,000 gallons a month.
That's a doozy.
Yeah, we're hoping to see an improvement. I think Montana Rural Water is probably our best bet right now, immediate, and to proceed with caution. Any other good ideas?
Okay, I don't have my card.
If there's nothing else that I wanna do while I'm on the city council, it's to be a steward, a good steward of the taxpayers' money.
And just pay for 15. Yeah, and
So I would say that we
for
probably lean on Leo a little bit more and not get crazy about spending $50,000 on meters
things like that, is that
right in the middle of us trying to justify a water rate increase. We're trying to save money. I wanna be really careful about spending any, if that makes any sense.
But we still have a lot of meters that have to be replaced.
And we do, yeah, I mean, we do.
And Sam, now you were involved in putting that new meter in. As I understand, we can add on to those meters, the technology, if we wanted to down the road, that's that possibility. And those meters that we're putting in from that company are the same price, or actually a little cheaper than the ones we've been getting from Core and Main.
They are, until we bump up to reading from here, if we wanted to get to that technology. But they are definitely, there's something that can be added to.
So that's a good investment for us right now. We might as well be buying those meters so that they could be added onto, because the ones we have presently, or that we had ordered from Core and Main were more than that per meter, and they didn't have the potential for that.
Nor did they have, we got a 20-year warranty on these new ones. We really didn't have a warranty on the other ones.
They were lasting 12, 13 years and now they're needing replaced.
But we can use them, we can use the new ones without having to subscribe to software or anything like
That's
that.
correct. They read,
They read to the master meter box.
Yep.
They just won't read to the, like John Lee's computer here.
correct.
Okay.
If we wanted to do that technology, have that technology, it's definitely more. But base level, that's where we're at, is it'll read right off the master meter.
And honestly, it takes 2 hours to drive around and read meters. So that versus whatever the cost is to have it on the computer, if you weigh that, you know, at this point, it doesn't sound like it would be, you know, worth going to that higher degree, but
I would add on to that, I think in the future, it
yeah.
would definitely be, because we could actually, it'd be advantageous to be able to tell a customer they have a leak. Hey, your meter's running, they're out of town, they're out of state, they're a snowbird, and we can see that you're using a ton more water and it's February. Maybe something's going on, we don't wanna be in your business, we're just trying to help you out so you don't have a high bill. And that way we can get their water leak fixed possibly, or they can. So I think that would be advantageous for the townspeople in time, that they would see the value in it.
Or if they've got a broken pipe in their house, they don't come home to a swimming pool.
That's what I mean, I think as a person that lives here, I'd be like, yeah, I'm excited for that, thank you. So, but definitely right now, it's level across the board. As far as usability and technology, they're definitely ahead. And we've replaced that one, it was straightforward, just pull it off and about 20 minutes, half an hour, we had it switched out. And a lot of them will go easier than that one, it all depends on how tight the installation was. That one was awfully tight, and when you're talking copper and galvanized, if you don't have much flex in them, it takes a little more time to get them pried apart without breaking anything.
No, you're saying that you had a bunch of meters on order, but they've been on back order or whatever is that the kind he's talking about? Or
No,
can you cancel that order?
These, yeah, we just should send them back if they don't, if they were to come, if we went with this and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's the other issue is that these guys right now, he said he can have 400 in stock
yeah.
with these new meters.
And if we were to run out and need them, he's like, he would drive them from Big Sky, Bozeman area to us, so.
Sounds like a pretty good deal to me.
Yeah, is that a decision that we're ready to make on the new meters?
Personally, I think it's a no-brainer to go with the newer ones and stuff. One question is, do you have to go to the real-time reading in order to get the leak
Yes, to
stuff?
go up. Now they have an integral system currently that reads on the customer side, but not on our side. In order to read from our side, they would have to turn that on and it would cost more money. But
But still-
currently, we're already helping ourselves out and our customers out by having a leak on their side, it'll read that.
And we still have rural water that we can, will assist us throughout with finding the leak detection more stuff on our side. But at least, I think it puts us a step in the right direction, because without 50 of them being read in 1 year, and they go out in 10 to 12 years, I'm not sure how many were put in. I think, was Danny here then? Or something, it was like half the town was,
Mike was like,
Mike, okay, I think it was like half town was done or something, so at that, we're looking at, within probably the next 3 years, 300 meters that are, their battery or lifeline is gonna die, so we can't sit around and wait for them to come in from Israel for.
Chris, is that something that you need from the council, but you have the authority to make day-to-day
Right,
operation
it's just-
decisions,
yeah.
I think if you decide to change vendors,
you change
because
vendors, that's something.
I think that's something that you can do without a motion or a movement from the council on.
That's
I think this committee, John, you've been kind of following it. Are you good with that decision to give Public Works and the mayor the freedom to just go ahead and change vendors and go to those new meters? Cancel the order?
That's a business decision at the mayor's level. It doesn't, we're just, I don't have a dog in this fight in the sense that I just happened to run into the guy and after he had talked to you guys and tried to look into it a little more closely. So, the day-to-day is the mayor's decision because that's necessary activities that gotta keep the water going to our people. So, as far as us, I don't see it as something we need to decide.
Right.
But everything we see in the meters, apples to apples, back and forth, the new meters, 20-year warranty, functionalities, does the same stuff, they're more accessible, and the money's really no different, so, we have not seen a downside.
Well, they're actually cheaper in the grand scheme of things if they have a warranty.
Yes,
If they're
yes.
available, the ones from Israel might be the best meter on the market, but if we can't get them, they're useless.
Yes.
Well, and this is a small baby step towards getting to having the whole leak detection aspect of things. So we're not having to take that great big bite of stuff, but yet we are trying to be proactive in moving in that direction.
If you were looking at having the leak detection through their system and software, you would need to have 100 meters as a start across their system. So even if we were looking at that or desiring that, it was a little ways down the road.
Okay. And I think we wanna continue to do a whack-a-mole at this point. Yeah. Yeah, well, I think that's, well, the committee here kind of thinks that would be a direction that y'all should feel free to go toward.
And you look at 100 meters, you're still looking at $300,000 to $400,000.
Where's that money coming from?
That's a good question. That's why we don't replace meters just willy-nilly. You know, you look at you're replacing meters as you need to, just to basically keep it within the budget.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
And currently we have, I think, about 72 that aren't reading, somewhere around in there, 60 to 72,
So you have to do those manually,
yes.
which means pull the manhole lid and climb down the pit and.
Well, not really, it's just the cover, but you're still manually doing it, that's 3-4 hours.
There's a handful of those ones, and then there's some that just have completely stopped reading. And John Lee just took an average of what the people had been using, and that's,
And those are the ones we've earmarked to get changed out. Right?
those are the older ones that went out at the beginning of like last year. So, and that's,
Well, I think we're moving in the right direction. We're moving in a positive direction, and that's always a good thing. So with leak detection, with the meters, so it'll be interesting to see the next couple of months if we're able to actually bring down that average of loss. So, is there any other? We're approaching the hour. Any other public comment?
Actually, I wanted to make sure it was alright by Chris, but I'm doing rounds this week, so I'm getting more involved in this side of things. But I want to let everybody know, in the first 16 days of the month, I'm going to throw some numbers out: 146,000, 114, 184, 121, 171, 165, 164, 131, 141. That was our daily usage in 24 hours, up till 16 days. Then it drops to 90, 88, we did have a 156, a 72, a 78, a 154, and a 76. We're dropping a lot of gallons, folks. There's a ton right there. And we're gonna be fixing another leak next week, and I full-heartedly believe that's gonna be, that's consuming a lot of our lost water. Just rough numbers, I'm guessing the one that we fixed over near the shop was 260 to 300,000 a month that we were losing. It was a 3/4 inch line with holes the size of my finger, my pinky finger. There was about 4 holes there, so, and it's 70, 80 pounds of pressure. So, and that's on the low side, we were losing 300,000 a month. So I believe this other one, that's why I was late, I was over talking to the ELM locate folks. It's probably losing that as well. I can actually open up the hydrant and hear the water rushing. So we're gonna get that one fixed next week, hopefully. So we're doing the right thing. We're on the way down, especially with wanting to have an increase in costs. I think for the townspeople, we're doing the right thing. But I just want to let you know that the numbers have come down, and that doesn't mean that we don't have ups and downs still. But we've dropped sometimes 50% in water usage in the last couple of weeks.
Good news. John, did you have a comment?
No.
Okay.
Charles, one more quick thing. We were talking on the rate side. The state was thinking we need to go from like 55 to 85, and you kind of threw out a number of 67. But that's water and sewer. It's my understanding that we're talking water and not sewer. So would the sewer rates remain the same, but the water rate would jump? Because when you just say 67, that sounds like it's both of them are gonna go up. And if they are, fine.
I thought I saw where both of them were going up. Am I wrong in
Where
that?
we had talked about raising both. Had we talked about raising sewer up to like 450 or something?
Yeah.
1,000?
What is
Well, that's
450?
not
It is
gonna
at
get-
450, yeah.
We were gonna raise it to,
450 now?
I think we were gonna talk about raising it to 4.25, or 475, raising it a quarter.
The way we can raise, here's the thing, that's the bill you're gonna get. If you're hooked up to water, you're also hooked up to sewer in all but like 2 cases in town. And so it doesn't matter to you.
Right.
Although, yeah, it really doesn't matter in the end. We have a number of ways to raise that, raise water, raise sewer, or raise usage. And we're looking at all 3 of those. One thing that we have looked at in this council is on this committee is maybe leaning onto usage. For instance, your situation where you're only using 500 gallons a month, it gives people a little more power over their water rates if we're able to actually put an increase in usage, so that if those people that don't really care that much are using a lot of water, then they're actually picking up the lion's share of that increase. And those of us that really are concerned about that water rate expense, we can just flush our toilet less or whatever, you know, we have a little more power over that. So we are looking at that as well, I think, altogether, are we not?
Yeah, and on the usage side of it, I mean, it's gonna come into play big time during the summer when you have people that are watering their lawns. You know, those are the people that are gonna end up having.
Bigger burden.
Well, they're just gonna have an ugly town because they're not gonna water. But if that's the way it is, you know,
And
it's kinda like washing your car, it's a waste of water anyway. Cause someday it'll rain. But I'm thinking if you just go with the 67, you can't put the sewer money into the water fund that the state wants, right?
No.
So how is, seems to me you should keep the sewer the same, but jack up the water rate so you can get that fund built up?
That's probably a question for Bobby, looking at that algorithm too, because when they are really tied together, the water and the sewer, so, but looking at that algorithm and deciding what we need to fix on that.
And when was the last sewer rate?
I believe it was 2019. I think they were raised in 2017 and then again in 2019 was our last rate increase. John could give you the exact date, she gave that to me over the phone yesterday. Any further discussion?
It's unfortunate that the clerk couldn't have got some of the figures you needed today. I understand Jolene's absence, but the clerk couldn't access some of the basic figures you need today that would have helped.
What figures would
You
you like
said the
today?
figures you needed to carry on about the rate discussion that was accessible only by Jolene's computer.
Well, we're looking at the thing is we're looking at a lot of figures at the same time. And a lot of that is just exactly what we've got, you know, looking at all of our accounts, why we've been able to keep it in the black. We're trying to figure out how far do we actually have to go, and how slowly can we mitigate the change. And we want to have those figures with a sharp pencil before we get to public comment. You know, so, and that will do. And Montana Rural Water will help us with that, just like in that, you know, how much do we actually raise water as opposed to sewer and whatnot, so that because we're also, again, looking at being in compliance with the MCA. Any further comment?
I'm gonna be moving a shed onto my lot. I won't put it up to the boundary, to the neighbor's boundary lines or anything. But
Okay.
part of the reason I'm purchasing that person wasn't able to make a living, a single parent, not making a living around here with kids. Got some medical training and has moved elsewhere to afford to take care of her family there. So, yeah, that's where we are.
Yeah. Are you still moving that shed there?
Mhm.
Okay. Make sure you check the planning board. All right, if there's nothing else, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you for your input on